Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out the range with the G36. This is a Tommy built replica of the G36, but it's as close as I'm ever going to get to owning one. And the G36 is a rifle that was developed in the early 1990s, and it would be used by the German military and other military and paramilitary and law enforcement agencies all over the world. When the Germans were looking at adopting a new weapon system, they didn't want to go the American route and adopt the M16 at the time. They wanted an indigenous rifle that they developed, German pride, I presume, and the G36 would be the end result of that program. But you fast forward about a decade, about 10 years, and you get into the early 2000s, and H&K developed the 416, which is very much an M16 with a short stroke gas piston on it. So what happened there? The 416 has gone on to replace this in German military service, and it's also replacing other G36s in service around the globe. So we're moving from the G36 back to the M16. So my question to you is, which do you prefer, the G36 or the 416? We're going to explore that in today's video and try to figure out which rifle I think is superior. Well, I already know, but I'll save that for later. All right, let's get started by shooting the Tommy built T36. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. So this is the H&K MR556A4, which will be the civilian equivalent of a fairly current modern 416. Now, the 416 has been around long enough where it's gone through a number of evolutionary changes, and this would be the most current that's at least available on the US market. And what I like about it, and I've done full videos on this rifle, is that it's a response, at least on the US market in this configuration, it's a response to the US market complaining about previous versions of the MR556A1s not being what people wanted. The barrels weren't right, the contours weren't right, the handguards weren't right, just all sorts of stuff wasn't right. And people really want the military version of the firearm. So this represents HK listening to the customer base and responding and giving us a rifle that's more in tune with what we were looking for. So this is what we're going to use to compare to the G36, or in this case, the T36 this afternoon. So nice rifle, extremely well made. Again, I have a full video on this gun if you want to learn more about it, but I just want to compare its features and functionality and ergonomics and weight and things like that to the G36. So let's do a little bit of shooting with this, then we'll head into the shack and start looking at the rifles side by side. All right, everybody watching this video has probably fired an AR-15 some point in their life, and the AR-15 is America's rifle. I would hazard a guess that more AR-15s are sold in this country than any other rifle type in 2026 and for years before that. So it's a popular rifle system. And there's a number of reasons for that. The rifle's very soft to shoot, it's very ergonomic, it's intuitive, it's easy to use, it's reliable, it's accurate. It just checks all the boxes. It was a genius rifle design that we came up with over 60 years ago. And in the US military, the M16 is our nation's longest serving infantry rifle. That's impressive. And so the M16 is loved, and a number of countries have adopted it, a number of countries have licensed it, and now we're seeing countries like Germany that previously used the H&K G36 that you see here adopting rifles like this. We see other governments like the French government giving up its bullpups, its FAMAS, going to 416s. The US military has used 416s. The story goes that Osama bin Laden was shot by a SEAL with a 416. So While it's not a mainline infantry rifle in the Army, the Marine Corps has adopted a version of the 416. We call it the IAR or the M27. So the rifle has really gained a lot of traction. I would say it's gained more traction than the G36, which gained a lot of traction on its own. So this rifle is extremely popular. Let's take the G36 apart first. So I'm going to make sure the weapon's empty. I've dropped the magazine out, check that chamber, and the chamber is clear. Now, one thing that's interesting, which just happened, is that you can lock the charging handle to the outside on either side just simply by pushing in on it. So you draw it out, push in on it, and that'll lock it out there. Pull back, and it'll spring back to the center. All right, so weapon's clear. Now I have some push pins back here. I'm going to pop out this rear push pin, and you can store these in the stock so you don't lose them. Pop out this front push pin, and then that magazine well I was telling you about, you push forward. Now I'm going to take the pistol grip out first. There's your fire control. We'll take a closer look at that here in a moment. And then you can take your magazine well off just like that. Now, as I was talking about earlier, you can get a mag well that has a Stenag adapter. Just pop it right on, push that pin through, and boom, you're using Stenag magazines. Now to take the bolt and carrier out, I'm going to fold the stock to the side. You have this little polymer piece on the rear. I'm going to pinch that, pull down on it, and out. The recoil spring and guide rod comes out, and then the bolt and carrier will come out. So it's very, very simple. And as you can see, this is all polymer construction. Now you have steel inside here, strengthening it in key areas, but the majority of it is polymer. You can take the handguard off very simply by popping this front pin out, and then the handguard just slides right off. So that is extremely lightweight. It almost feels like a fake gun. It doesn't feel real. It's so lightweight. And that was the whole point of this. The use of polymers would get it to be extremely light. All right, so let's set these parts aside and take a little bit closer look at the trigger group. I'd mentioned that they had used some polymer in here. Put that hammer forward. And so some of the components in here are polymer. The hammer is metal. You can see the shiny face of it. But you can see steel has been inserted into the polymer to strengthen it, and the polymer wraps around the steel inserts. And so the pins are securely held. You're not going to see the polymer fail on it. So it's really interesting the extent to which they went to use polymers on the G36. Now, another thing that is kind of a detractor is that the pistol grip is molded into the trigger group, and that means you're not going to be able to put an AR-15 pistol grip on there or otherwise change the pistol grip to change the ergonomics of the rifle to better tailor it to you as the shooter. All right, let's take a look at the MR556A4. If you're used to the AR-15, this is going to be very little in terms of difference. So first we're going to make sure the weapon is empty, magazine's out, check that chamber, and it is empty. Now what's nice about the A4 is the A1 version of the MR556 had this tool that you had to use, or you could use the tip of a bullet to field strip the gun. You had to push in on a little tiny detent inside the push pin and then push the pin across. And then you had to push it to get the pin to come back the other way. And it was just cumbersome. And it was just part of HK in Germany super civilianizing their firearm. So in the A4, that nonsense is gone. It's just a standard AR-15 style pin that doesn't require tools, that allows you to separate the upper and lower very easily. So then I'm going to pull the T-handle, charging handle back. You'll notice it has big ambi claws on both sides. Very easy to charge. Pull the bolt and carrier out. Pull the T-handle out, and it'll drop down and out. And then I can take the handguard off, and you can see the gas system. And this was inspired by the G36, and I believe Larry Vickers had a lot to do with this. And there's the gas system on the 416, at least the A4. And so it's a very easy gas system to field strip and maintenance. And then you can see the adjustable gas block there, 2-position. So very simple. Now you can also go a little bit further and take the bolts out of their carriers. I'm not going to do that. It's very similar. It has a cam pin on the G36, just like the AR-15, just in a different location. You can see the bolts are very similar. Different, but similar. So the G36 borrowed some design ideas, obviously, from the M16. But you'll notice on the 416 that you don't have a carrier key that comes all the way out here for gas because it's not using the internal piston of Stoner's design. It's using a short stroke gas piston that's going to tap right here. That's going to cause the bolt and carrier to cycle. Inside, standard, fair AR-15 M16 style fire controls. So, yeah. I really love the ergonomics of the M16. Now, they've also, in the A4, changed the pistol grip a bit, a little bit more vertical, which is popular these days. But overall, HK does an amazing job in terms of machining and quality. So even their polymer components are extremely high quality. And so I originally was concerned about the polymer, the extensive use of polymers with the G36, but over time and after owning a couple of these rifles, I've come to the conclusion that the polymer isn't an issue. It's actually a nice feature. The gun is extremely lightweight. Now, we've seen polymer AR-15 show up on the market, the Carbon 15 and things like that, attempting to bring the weight down. But the problem is when you go and try to make an aluminum part out of polymer, some of the areas are going to be really thin, and people have struggled with that, and some of the polymer lowers have struggled with durability over the years. But I think at this point, there are some pretty good polymer AR-15 components out there, uppers and lowers, that you can experiment with that generally hold up. But if I'm building or buying a rifle for serious use, duty work, self-defense, things like that, I'm going to stick with the aluminum versions of the AR-15. Earlier in the video, I asked you guys to comment down below as to which rifle you think I would pick in this video as being my favorite of the two. So go ahead and comment on your comment and let me know if you guessed right. Naturally, I would pick the M16 variant. And why is that? Well, everybody has a bias, and I'm biased towards the M16. Why? I've literally been shooting this rifle since the 1980s or some version of it. So I'm very comfortable with the AR-15. It's one of my favorite rifles. And it's hard to get past the familiarity that I have with the rifle, the ergonomics, the shootability. I just feel very comfortable when I pick it up. It just goes right to my shoulder, it points very naturally. And the 416, or in this case, the MR556A4, is such a high quality version of this gun that it just feels right. It's not too heavy, it's not too light, it's not imbalanced, it balances perfectly. I just love it. So I'm biased towards the M16. And so I think a lot of people in the United States would feel the same way, and heck, maybe even people that formerly used the G36 that are now using the 416 feel that way. I don't know. But I would definitely go with the AR-15. Which would you pick? Feel free to comment once more. Would you pick the G36, or would you do like a lot of governments and switch over to the 416? Again, let me know down below. If you guys would like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel so we continue to bring content like this, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There's a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, you got the subscribe button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash that button, and you can help support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. I want to thank you guys for 18 years of support. Swing by, check out Copper Custom, and we will talk to you guys soon.